Chapter 3, The Alpha's Way. The pack accepted him, not as an intruder, not even as a curiosity, but as one of their own. Peter walked among them, ate beside them, slept when they slept. He'd traded his campfire and canopy for nights curled beneath broad, mushroom-capped trees. The wolves' warmth pressed against his sides. Their breaths synced with his. Their howls echoed in his chest like old songs returning to memory. But Peter never sank into savagery. He didn't become a wolf. He made the wolves better. It started with small things. He noticed how one of the younger wolves limped on its back leg, an old break, poorly healed. The others avoided putting pressure on it, but Peter gathered straight branches and bark fibers and carefully splinted the limb. The wolf whined at first, but grew used to support. In time, it ran smoother than ever before. He taught them boundaries, creating distinct signals for when it was safe to rest and when they had to move, using sharp whistles and hand signs that came naturally after years on Earth training dogs. The pack learned quickly, smarter than he could have imagined. He began storing food, digging shallow caches near water, and marking them with symbols made from carved stone. At first, the wolves raided them, thinking him foolish for not eating what was freshly hunted. But then came a week of rain, when prey disappeared and the forest grew quiet. The wolves remembered. They dug up his stores and left enough for him to eat too. By the second moonrise since the fight, Peter had names for most of them. The Alpha he called Ash Mark for the white stripe along his side. The limping one became Trip, who now followed Peter like a shadow. There was Redtail, a lean, fast female with uncanny senses, and Tusk, the youngest male who constantly tried to prove himself. He never spoke aloud to them much. Language wasn't needed. The bond went deeper than words. And slowly the wolves changed. They didn't hunt so recklessly. They learned patience. They learned strategy. Once, Peter led a hunt where they drove a herd of horned grazers into a narrow canyon, cutting off their escape with logs he'd arranged as a makeshift funnel. The wolves executed it with eerie precision. That night, they brought the largest share of meat to Peter. Ashmark dropped a slab of flank beside him and bowed his head, not submission, but respect. Peter wasn't just pack. He was alpha. It wasn't until late that night, as they curled together beneath the stars, that Peter first spotted the glyphs. He was tracing one of his markers in the dirt, a symbol he used to mark water sources, when he noticed a carved pattern on the bark of a nearby tree. It was old but deliberate, angular, like claw marks arranged into a language. He found another on a nearby stone, a spiral carve so deep it had to have taken days. The wolves didn't react to them, but Peter's instincts told him what this meant. He wasn't the first sentient being here, and he wouldn't be alone much longer. Chapter 4, Eyes in the Trees. Peter crouched by the stream, scrubbing blood from Ashmark's flank. The Alpha had taken a nasty gouge from a boar-like creature 2 days prior, and though the bleeding had stopped, infection was always a risk. Peter had boiled a poultice of sweet leaf and redroot, plants he'd tested for antiseptic properties. Ashmark grumbled softly, but didn't resist. "Almost done," Peter murmured, the wolf's eyes half closed in trust. It was moments like these that confirmed it. He was no longer just surviving. He was leading. But lately, something had changed in the forest. The wolves were restless. Ears pricked, noses lifted too often. They started avoiding certain paths, circling wide around places they once frequented. Peter noticed symbols carved into trees that weren't his own. Cruder, angrier. Spirals, jagged crosses, shapes like open jaws or teeth. Sometimes they were painted in ochre or ash, mixed with something dark, blood, perhaps. Once, he found the skull of a horned grazer mounted on a spear. The wolves bristled at the sight, low growls rumbling in their throats. A warning. Peter didn't ignore it. They found the first real sign 3 days later. It was a campsite, abandoned but recent. Fire pit still warm, ashes damp from a nearby rain. Bones scattered around it, stripped clean by sharp teeth. Clothing, if it could be called that, hung from low branches, leather and fur stitched crudely together, adorned with feathers and claws. There were footprints, bare, broad, clawed in a way that looked too symmetrical to be animal. Humanoid. Peter scanned perimeter, fingers tight around the shaft of his spear. The wolves spread out behind him, senses on high alert. They weren't alone anymore. They came that night, not openly. Peter awoke to the faintest sound, leaves rustling where there should have been none. He held still, breath shallow, eyes half-lidded. Ashmark was already up, silent beside him, ears rotating like satellite dishes. Movement in the trees. Shadows flitting between branches. Watching. He didn't confront them. Not yet. The forest had rules. So did the Watchers. He waited. The encounter came at dawn. Peter had taken the pack to the ridge above the canyon to scout for fresh game when he saw them. 6 figures. They emerged from the trees with fluid, animalistic grace, crouched low and wide like predators. They didn't walk so much as stalk, hands always half-curled like claws, eyes never still. Each one was humanoid, but unmistakably alien. Their skin ranged from earthen brown to deep red, painted in swirls and jagged lines. Their hair was braided with bones and beads. They wore no armor, just furs and hides stitched with sinew, and every one of them carried a weapon. Curved blades of black stone, bows strung with sinew, spears sharpened to gleaming points. But it was their eyes that struck Peter most. Wolf-like, golden or amber, wide pupils, scanning for weakness. Not feral, not stupid. Hunters. He raised a hand slowly, palms open. No weapon. The wolves bristled but didn't move. Ashmark stood beside Peter, a silent mountain of fur and muscle. The tribesmen halted, barely 20 feet away. Tension coiled in the air. One of them stepped forward. She was tall, easily 6.5 feet, with deep ochre skin and dark hair woven into tight braids. Her body was lean and powerful, her arms covered in ritual scars. A necklace of wolf teeth hung around her throat. She studied Peter not as prey, but as a rival, a challenge. Then her eyes flicked to Ashmark, and she hesitated. That hesitation lasted only a moment, but Peter saw it. Recognition, respect, maybe even confusion. Then she spoke in a guttural language, low and sharp, like a growl woven into words. The tone wasn't hostile, but it wasn't friendly either. Peter stayed silent, then slowly bent down, took a piece of charcoal from his pouch, and drew a circle in the dirt between them, a symbol of peace. One he'd used for the wolves when offering shared food. The woman looked at him. Then she howled, a long, piercing cry that echoed through the valley. From behind the trees, more figures emerged. 12, then 24, men and women, all marked, all armed, all watching. And behind them, wolves, dozens of them, thinner, more aggressive-looking than Peter's pack. Not companions, tools. Peter looked into their eyes and saw submission, not bond. The wolves he had uplifted stood taller than those that had broken their humans. And the tribe noticed. The woman stared at Peter, and for the first time he truly saw her, not just as a threat, but as something far more complicated. She was savage, yes, painted in blood and ash, lean with power and hunger, but striking. Her skin shimmered with sweat and war paint. Her eyes burned with cunning. Her posture was alert, wolfish, but fluid with grace. There was a wild beauty to her, like a storm balanced on the edge of control. Peter's heart beat faster, and she noticed. A slow, knowing smile touched her lips, not soft, not flirtatious, but curious. She tilted her head and stepped closer. Too close. The wolves didn't move. Neither did Peter. She circled him, sniffing faintly as she passed behind his shoulder, just inches away. He caught her scent. Earth, smoke, salt, something animal and sweet beneath it all. When she stopped in front of him again, they stood nearly chest to chest. She was tall, nearly his height. Her golden eyes locked onto his with unblinking intensity, searching him for weakness and finding none. He didn't flinch, didn't step back. He was calm. He was alpha, and she knew it. The others knew it too. Around them, the surrounding tribespeople had gone quiet. Peter saw them looking, not just at him, but at Ashmark beside him. at the way the wolves didn't obey out of fear, but trust, at the way this stranger stood like one of them, but did not bow to their customs. He was foreign, but compelling, a rival, a mystery, maybe something more. The woman let out a low hum, something between a purr and a growl, and then crouched smoothly, one hand pressed the earth between them. Her gaze remained fixed on him. It was a gesture layered in meaning. Challenge, invitation, curiosity. The pack watched. The tribe watched. Peter stepped forward. And so began the first steps into a world he would one day rule. Not through domination, but through a bond deeper than blood. A bond that had already begun to grow in the